Welcome to the Dark Moon Podcast. I'm Sylvanus, I'm your host, and today we're diving into something that might sound a little bit mystical and magical at first, but it actually has some fascinating science behind it. The human biofield, or what many traditions call the aura. Now, I've got a little mini course going out on the hidden worlds, and it's about 10 mini courses on various subjects, and the first subject happens to be the aura. So I wanted to chat to you about the aura today. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, new age stuff with colourful halos around people. Now hang in there. A lot of us see auras. If you don't necessarily see them in like happy sort of colours, rainbow colours, but you may sort of see a little wobble in the field every now and again. Now, when I was a kid, I was short-sighted, and nobody picked up on me being short-sighted for many years. I was copying off other people. I never really realised that the blackboard was actually in focus, but that's a different story. People leave happy trails behind them. Now, certainly years later, I got the term happy trails, but at the time, I had to read people by their energy fields because I couldn't actually see their faces. So I believe it was a survival trait. It's like something you pick up on. So you have to read the energy and the fields of people. And I saw photographs later of Taurus fields, and that's what it's like. And people will ask questions, like, what colour is my aura? There are lots of colours, and they change. They flicker in or out of colours. So what predominantly are you now? That's one question. What after you've had an emotional surge, had a thought, sparky bits come through it. That's the sort of level that I can see without my glasses. Now, when I put my glasses on, everything becomes edges and sharpness, and that's wonderful. So I kind of see the real world. But as a survival trait, growing up, I had to learn to see energy fields because people didn't really pay much attention to me that my eyesight might be bad. So scientists don't use the term aura much. They prefer biofield, which is fine. I don't care what they call it. It's a label. It describes the complex electromagnetic fields that surround all living things. And yes, these fields are real and measurable. Okay, so let's start with something a little bit more familiar, like an ECG at your doctor's. EKG, ECG at your doctor's. These machines are measuring the electroactivity of your heart. I had one strapped to me for about 72 hours. It was most uncomfortable, but it did register the electrical activity of my heart. And the electrical activity creates a field that extends beyond your body, right? So whoomph, whoomph, whoomph is your heartbeat, and it's going out waves. And the same goes for your brain waves. That's for an EEG. I had to look these terms up because I'm not a medical practitioner, but your brain waves emit another electrical field. So your heart is doing one, whomp, 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 and your brain is doing another. And every single cell in your body maintains what scientists call an electrical potential, tiny voltage differences across cell membranes. Collectively, all these electrical activities create fields that extend outwards from our bodies. They aren't just theoretically here, we're actually talking about something that can be measured. And one of the really, really coolest studies I came across was done by the Heart Math Institute. They showed that one person's heart signals could actually be detected in another person's brain activity when they were sitting close together. Think about that. Your heart's energy field is literally interacting with the people around you. Maybe there's something to that feeling when somebody just gives off good vibes or bad vibes. When you walk into a room, you think, I don't want to be in here. Your heart is giving off one activity, and it's picking up the brain from the other, and vice versa. Wow. We are more interconnected on more levels than most people really think about it. So, okay, it gets a little bit wilder. Do you know what? Your cells emit light, right? So it's called biophoton emission, and it was first discovered by a German scientist, Fritz Albert Popp. I've written this down. So these light emissions are incredibly weak, and you can't see them with the naked eye, but they can be measured with special equipment called photomultiplier tubes. Right, now, maybe you can't see them with the naked eye, but maybe we're picking them up somewhere along the line. Maybe when I see auras, this is what I'm seeing. There was a fascinating study in Dartmouth College that found these light emissions change depending on whether someone is stressed, relaxed, or even dealing with inflammation in your body. Some researchers think that these biophotons might be part of how our cells communicate with each other. Now, what about these colourful auras that psychics claim to see? Science hasn't confirmed that specific colours that people claim to perceive. We claim a little bit more than claim, sunshine. Some of us know how to earn a living doing it. But it's interesting that we are literally surrounded by electromagnetic fields and emit light at varying intensities. Could some people be particularly sensitive to these emissions? It's an open question. I know the answer. I am highly sensitive to these emissions. In fact, sometimes it's like fingers down a blackboard because you can pick up exactly on what is being projected. If I tune in, and I don't like tuning in, you can see pictures in these fields. So you can literally know what people are thinking about, what are they projecting. And that was not so fun when I was growing up, when you suddenly realize the bus driver is staring at your chest and what he's thinking about. And you're like, what? Why is he doing that? You also learn that people actually can't help what they're thinking. And a lot of it is just like background thinking. In other words, it's a thought process they're not conscious of. It's just a sort of a blurge that's going on. So it took me a while to learn that. But I have learned that people are not in control of their own thoughts. It's just a random set of images sometimes. Anyway, as technology improves, our ability to study these biofields gets better too. Scientists are now using quantum sensors that can detect incredibly weak magnetic fields, and the machine learning to identify these patterns in the data that humans might miss. There's even an emerging field of biofield diagnostics, where researchers are exploring whether these energy measurements might one day help us detect diseases before symptoms appear. Imagine going for a checkup where the doctor scans your biofield to find imbalances before they manifest as physical problems. But yeah, okay, it sounds great. Sounds science fiction. These fields are incredibly weak, which makes them hard to measure reliably. They also have the problem of environmental noise. We're constantly surrounded by electromagnetic fields from our devices, power lines, Wi-Fi, and more. So filtering out this noise to measure the subtle biofields from living things is seriously a tricky business. So where does it leave us? Are auras real? Well, if by aura you mean a mystical coloured halo that reveals your personality, I haven't found anything in science that confirms that. So yes, we could all be tripping. However, if you're talking about complex electromagnetic fields and photon emissions that surround all living things, absolutely. Now, science has verified that. Science can sometimes take a run and jump because basically we know stuff, and we may not know how we know stuff, and until it's verified by science, we still know stuff. I think what's happening here is often when science meets traditional knowledge, we're finding measurable physical explanations for a phenomenon that people have been describing for centuries. Ancient healers and sensitives don't have the vocabulary of electromagnetic fields and biophoton emissions. I can barely say the words. So they describe what they perceive in terms of aura and energetic bodies and chakras. Okay, before I finish, I should mention this field of study opens up some really interesting ethical questions too. If our biofields contain information about our physical and emotional states, what about privacy? Yeah. And this biofield measurement technologies improve, how they should be related, especially if they're used for health and diagnosis. So if I'm wandering around the street and I look up and I feel that somebody's got a brain tumor, is it ethically right that I tell them? Absolutely not. Why? Because I could be wrong and I could be scaring the shit out of someone. That's one thing. But it's also uninvited Now, ethical uses of intuition should never ever be uninvited. If somebody is paying you to have a look at the crossing your palm with silver, it's an old term, but it means it's crossing that boundary. I am asking for your service in this area, then that's fine. But if I detect some illness or sickness, I have learnt to just look at it and just be aware of it. But it is not part of what I am to give you a diagnosis, because I don't have the language, I don't have the medical history to understand. I'm just saying that there's a shadowy, weirdy sort of bit in their body there. But even saying that, it's not enough. You have to know better. So I'm all for science hitting this hard. Go for it, guys. Let's find a connection. Let's find a way where science can look at the aura and diagnose it, because I'm unprepared to. Okay, so that's all that I've got for today on the exploring of biofields and the aura. So I have the mini course going out if you would like to learn to see auras. Please hit subscribe and share, because I could really do with the figures and the encouragement here. And thank you for watching the Dark Moon podcast. Please check out my website, weavesofwaves.life. This is part of the Weaves of Waves community of things. I've got an amazing new coaching program coming out, so watch this space.